Now. Okay. All right. Welcome back. Sorry for that. I don't know what happened, but technical difficulties abound.
Well, this wonderful technology that we all rely upon, we complain when it doesn't work, but we have to sort of, as Louis C.K. said, we all have to keep in mind, like, this stuff is just going out into outer space and bouncing off satellites, and really it's quite amazing. So, down to our phones and computers and stuff. So, living in the future, you can't expect it to work all the time. But yeah, on true will, I think it's a deeper thing than that. I don't equate like the daily whims and wants that occur in the normal thought process as automatically being true will. Because then why even call it true?
Right. I understand what you're saying. I understand that the quote real true will is something higher and purer and more valuable and meaningful than just like, oh, I want some White Castle right now. I don't disagree with that. I just think that in my opinion, people have a tendency to ignore some of the more obvious pointers in our lives. I know I do. I'll sit there and I'll be like, ignoring all these things that indicate to me that I'm getting unhealthy, and then next thing you know, I'm all unhealthy as a result of ignoring all these obvious signs. But if I would pay attention to what I want in the moment, maybe I'll go out and have some more vitamin C or whatever. But
now, see, there, I think you've tapped into something that people need to talk more about in magic, and I try to discuss this in my course. I have a lesson, in fact, it's about will and willpower. So I talk about true will, and then I talk about willpower, which is a very different thing. The idea of doing what you know you should do in the face of what you momentarily want to do.
Right.
And you know this well. You lost 50 pounds?
Yeah, something like that.
So that had to involve a lot of mornings where you're like, really, eggs and spinach and salsa again for breakfast? Like, really?
That's really delicious stuff, though.
It is delicious stuff. It's what I have for breakfast too. But there's got to be mornings where you're like, I would love a bagel.
Oh yeah,
bagel with cream cheese. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah,
but so that's the willpower. But it was funny because you reminded me of a conversation I had with a fellow a couple of years ago. I'm not going to out who they are because I just think that's foul unless they tell you, yes, give it. But we were discussing about Christianity and thelema and how so many people are sort of anti-Christian, but the term thelema ultimately in its spiritual usage comes from the Bible. Thy will be done, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And that person was like, well, that's the will of God. Thelema is about the will of the self. And I was like, okay, so is it, but you just talked about how Buddhism is in line with thelema. But in Buddhism, there's not really any self. Well, it's the enlightened nature of mind. It's not your individual egoistic self. It's this larger, more encompassing self. And I'm like, please describe how that is different from God.
Right.
And it was like suddenly it's like, oh, you're right.
Yeah, that's
how it all works.
Right. But in practice, like I know you hesitate to adopt any titles or recognition of any kind of attainment, but you're one of those people that I consider who are, you live your life as if you really were capable of doing all the things that you tell people we're capable of doing. You're one of the least bullshit people that I know. Your life reflects your philosophy, and your philosophy reflects your life. I think you're further along than you like to give yourself credit for, but we'll just chalk that up to your issues and move on. But I mean,
What would it serve anyone to claim a high title?
It's not about claiming titles. It's just about
Because then
recognizing
somebody
that.
would see me in my worst moment and, be like, wow, Mr. Adeptus Exemptus or Mr. Magister Templi just like, screamed his head off at his kids or
Well,
something or Mr. Sissimus there just flipped the bird to somebody on the road.
but
So it's all
that was in complete accord with his true will. That's fine,
I am a normal schlub just like anyone else. In the Chthonic Iranian order, we had reversed the triad. So you start off in the hermit triad,
Mhm.
and then you become a lover, and then you finally rise to become a man of earth.
See, and I think that
So
that's totally hermetic, actually. If you look at, the Emerald Tablet, you ascend to the heavens so that you can return to the earth in power. That whole balanced approach is sort of what it's all about, Practical magic, doing things, taking your spiritual attainments or whatever, your spiritual perspective that you're able to achieve and seeing through the dichotomy and sort of realizing that you're free to do what you want or what you will or what is most beneficial to you based on your desires in the long run. It's one of the things I always liked about your work is that you've taken some of what I consider project management techniques and applied it to the great work. And you've taken your spiritual experiences and turned it into, practical guidelines because people, if you just sit on a mountaintop, all you end up with is a mountaintop up your butt. It doesn't necessarily help anyone or your family or help you meet your own responsibilities or help you have a good time. It's just sort of like, to what end, and I that was kind of what I hoped to touch on the most was to what end, the spiritual things that we can get from your latest book and the practical things that we've gotten from all of your works across the way and how it kind of unfolds in your life in general today. I think that you kind of deserve a little bit of a reminder that you're rocking it hard right now. You aren't fucking up. You've got it going on in so many ways, and you're proving that the things that you have said over the years are not only true but also effective and meaningful. And anyway, I think that the community at large owes you at least a little bit of gratitude and a great deal of respect. So.
Well, thank you. I do. I greatly appreciate that, and I appreciate all my peers and students and teachers and people are not firmly in any camp. I learn so much from my students every day.
Yeah.
I have this apprentice program where I talk with people twice a month, and I'd say at least once once every 2 or 3 calls, like they'll tell me about something, and I'm like, no, tell me about that. Like, do you know anything about this? And I'm like, no, but it's fascinating. Please, do tell. So, and then I'll help them put the strategic sorcery spin on it. But, yeah, I mean, we're all in this together, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish. But one of the reasons that I try not to talk about my own life too much is that ultimately, if you are buying a book from me, or if you are joining my course or becoming an apprentice or something like that, you want to know what those teachings can do for you, because maybe I was just born with magic glitter powers up my ass.
Like
and
me.
I could teach whatever, and it doesn't really mean anything because I really have the special sauce. So that's why I put so much of an emphasis on field reports and things like that. When students do something, I'm like, look at what this student did, and my course was somewhat of a help in this. I never, you know, of course, their own work is where the credit is deserved, but I like to put the focus on them because really, everybody, we're not all gifted the same. We don't all have the same capacity for the same things. That kind of, you know, egalitarian stuff is nice an idea, but it's just not the reality. Some of us are talented in some ways, and some of us are not. But most everyone can make something work, and you know, I think my approach is really about how to make the magic that we already know work better for us.
And getting back to what Deb said about picking up techniques rather than a whole practice, what I liked best about your coursework was that it was a series of techniques that you've picked up, you know, and you expose your students to a sequential set of practices that they can pick and choose from and merge with their own experience and traditions in their own way. You know, it's not this is the one true occult, and you know.
I mean, there is a system within it. If you just wanted to practice that, you could, and there are spirits specific to the course, and there are spiritual ideas like the facets of the flow that are specific to the course, but or to my methods, we'll say. But the course is designed specifically to be able to be picked up by people who are already practicing other things.
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody anymore that's not practicing other things.
I don't have time to learn a whole new system. You know, I mean, this Hermetic thing has worked out great for me. I'm good, you know. But when I see how you apply it, you know, I'm like, oh, that's a great technique. That article that Christopher Bradford wrote the other day about heating and cooling and sweetening and souring spirits, I was like, yeah, that sums up a lot of what I've done, but also reminds me of things that I've totally forgotten about, you know. And I'm like, oh, freaking brilliant, you know, and so simple. Of course, you just go out and taste your herbs. Duh, you know, stuff that we should know, you know. And it's just, I don't know. I think that I feel pretty fortunate to be in our particular circle of friends and magicians at this particular time. You know, Bradford does Palo, or is it, what does he do, Palo?
Yeah, he does Palo and
Hermetics
Hermetics and alchemy.
And root work.
I actually have to give him a big shout out. You know, my writing style is to do months of research and then write the book in the course of a few weeks. It drives my wife crazy. She says it's like, you know, it's like watching somebody cram a term paper in like the day before it's due. And you know, so I get an advance check, and then I just have months of time to write a book, and I write like a little bit here, a little bit there, and then like a couple of weeks before it's due, I'm just up for, you know, 36 hours straight writing, and then but Christopher Bradford was extremely helpful with this because he knows the material that I was trying to go over, both in terms of the Eastern and Westerner. And, you know, I would shoot him over chapters, and he would read them, not to edit, but just to be like, you know, does this make sense? Like, you know, do I need to take a nap, or can I keep going? Like, and really, like, within an hour, he would read a chapter and get back to me. So he was a really good friend when writing.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to mention to you the chapter on breathing techniques that you provide with the locks, and the different types of breaths into the locks. I've totally ripped and pillaged and put that into practice with my own daily asana and pranayama stuff that I have to do for stuff, and it's really changed the entire. It was a big game changer. The way you explained it, I think Harper tried to tell me before how to do it, and I just didn't. It didn't click. But for some reason, I was able to. I don't know why, but reading through that chapter has really been beneficial to me personally. So.
You know, that chapter, if there's anything that I want people to get out of the book, it's probably that inner heat chapter, those chapters about breath and the inner heat, because so much in Western sex magic, Randolph and Crowley and Craig and other people that have written about sexual alchemy have written about heating the elixir, but they write about the heating process basically as if, you have to have sex for at least 30-40 minutes. But they don't really talk about any kind of inner heat, pranayama or anything. It's just like, keep doinking it. And if you're following like Pascal Beverly Randolph, it's sort of like, make sure that you're not really passionate either. This should be like a dispassionate thing, which, I mean, that's a boner killer right there. I'm sort of wondering, was he just catering to Victorian morals of the day, in which case he wouldn't have been writing about this to begin with, or did he really think that to have clarity, you need to not have, lust arising in the mind?
Maybe he switched back and forth.
Well,
get lustful, and then when he was able to.
Yeah, I forget the exact quote. I think I quoted it in the book, but it was pretty much like, don't think sexy thoughts while having sex. God forbid. So, that's not at all. That doesn't generate heat. That doesn't even generate good sex. You're gonna have sex for like 30-40 minutes with some girl. If it's not really great, she's, after 10 minutes, she's going to be like, okay.
Well, I look at that as sort of use this one simple trick to last longer in bed,
Well, I mean, these are, and there are things in the book that will get you to last longer so that you can have a simultaneous orgasm, with a woman or your partner, whoever that is. But that there's much more to the heating process than that. And if you look at Tantra and Taoism, you see these internal heat practices that are real. They get studied at universities. At Columbia, they have a monk raise his core body temperature up to 117 degrees.
I believe it.
Using some of these techniques. And now, granted, this is a guy that practices, 2 hours a day, but we don't need to do that. Just generating a little bit of the inner heat and then bringing that into the deification, holding divine pride of an invocation, or resting in the natural state of mind, and then opening up that moment of orgasm. It's like falling into enlightenment. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and
I mean, never mind this battle with Qurans and to cross the abyss. Just have a good orgasm and float your way right up the path.
Works for me, man. All right, so
relax into Daf.
When you talk about the throat and the root locks and doing that at the same time, so every morning, Harper found this app, right, for the phone, and it's this pranayama app, and it takes you through this just in and out, and then the 3-part where you hold it on the in and just relax and breathe in, and then the square breath, the 4-part breath, with Kambakta or whatever it's called. And so every morning for 15 minutes we go through those 3 things, and it's like 5 minutes, and then it's 5 minutes of each, basically. And it's just, I started using the locks that you described as I was doing that, and I started having these for these like quote unquote advanced levels of pranayama, right? He's like, your body will lock, and you will assume a rigid thing, and you'll be covered in a sheen of sweat. And I'm like, yeah, you're covered in a sheen of sweat because you're working out the whole time,
Yeah.
But it was carrying on into the coitus and the falling back into orgasm. After having done that for a few weeks, it's definitely changed things. It's been very, very. Just saying, I appreciate a good practice. The rewards are wonderful. So
I'm reaching into the bedrooms of occult America.
Ew.
That's great.
All right. Well, hey, it's going on, what, 3 o'clock your time? So,
Yeah.
shall we wrap things up?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm going to try to do a little bit of editing on these videos and get the pieces put together into one, and
That would be great.
put the 353 thing in front and back because I know you love that. And anyway, thanks a lot for.
As long as you're not, as long as you're not shouting "will" or something. Before
Oh yeah, I can't
then
even
that
remember
would.
that. I feel like such a lapsed Catholic every time somebody does will. I'm like, oh.
Do what thou wilt to be the whole of the law. What is your will?
I'm hungry. Shut up.
Have sex, have sex and attain enlightenment. To what end?
Well, yeah.
Do I really need another end?
Not my end, anyway.
There you go.
Well, okay. Well, thanks again. Continue to be blessed and highly favored amongst all of your peers and friends, and may everything you do be incredibly successful as it has been so far. And thanks.
Well, I'm so happy to see the ROpocalypse taking shape.
Me too. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but we'll have a good time getting there. So.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.